The sun was sinking behind the endless Wyoming plains, turning the sky the color of rusted gold. Dust clung to the hem of her torn dress as she stumbled forward, every step sending sharp pain through her side. The desert wind howled like it knew her fear. Somewhere behind her, hooves had thundered, gunshots had cracked the air, but now there was only silence. Too much silence. She stopped near a cluster of dry sagebrush, her knees buckling. "Go slow. It hurts," she whispered to no one, her voice breaking as she pressed trembling fingers against the wound at her ribs. Blood stained her palm. She had run too far, too fast. Her strength was gone. That was when she heard it, the soft, careful sound of a horse approaching, not charging, not hunting. She lifted her head with effort, fear flashing in her eyes. In the fading light, a lone cowboy came into view. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his hat pulled low, but his hands were visible, empty. He dismounted several steps away, as if afraid to scare her. "Easy," he said quietly, his voice calm, steady, like the land itself. "I'm not here to harm you." Her body tensed, pain and terror fighting inside her. She had learned the hard way that kind words didn't always mean safety. Still, her legs gave out, and she swayed. Before she could fall, he moved, but slowly, exactly as she had begged. "Go slow. It hurts," she repeated, barely audible. "I hear you," he replied, stopping just close enough to support her without grabbing. "I'll die before I hurt you. You have my word." Something in the way he said it, no pride, no demand, made her look at him again. His eyes were tired, lined by sun and years, but there was no hunger in them, no cruelty. Only concern. He let her choose when to lean on him, when to take the next step. Together, inch by inch, they reached his horse. He helped her up carefully, one hand steadying the saddle, the other hovering, never forcing. The motion sent pain through her, and she gasped, but he waited until it passed. "You're safe for now," he said. "My cabin's not far." As they rode, the world seemed vast and unforgiving, endless land, endless danger, but the rhythm of the horse and the quiet presence behind her slowed her racing heart. For the first time since she'd fled, she wasn't running. She was surviving. The stars began to appear, sharp and bright. She wondered who this man was and why he'd chosen kindness in a land that rewarded strength and violence. The Wild West was not known for mercy, but as the cold night settled in, she realized that sometimes mercy arrived without warning, riding quietly out of the dust. And for the first time that day, hope hurt a little less than fear. They reached the cabin long after night had fully claimed the land. It stood alone near a line of cottonwood trees, small but solid, with a fence that had been repaired more times than it could count. The cowboy dismounted first, tying the horse before turning back to her. He spoke softly, as if the night itself might listen. "We're here. Take your time." With his help, she slid down carefully, her breath catching as her feet touched the ground. Pain flared again, but she stayed upright. He guided her inside, lighting a lantern that filled the room with warm, steady light. The cabin was simple. Wooden table, iron stove, a narrow bed, but it was clean, cared for. "Safe. Sit," he said gently, pointing to a chair near the fire. "I'll get water." She watched him move, noticing how every step was deliberate, how he never turned his back fully on her, not out of fear, but out of respect. When he returned, he knelt, keeping his eyes level with the floor unless she spoke. "May I?" he asked, holding up a clean cloth. She nodded. "Just go slow." "I will." He cleaned the wound carefully, stopping whenever. She winced. The silence between them wasn't heavy, it was thoughtful. Outside, the wind brushed against the cabin walls, carrying the distant cry of coyotes. Inside, the fire cracked softly. "You were running from someone," he said at last, not as an accusation, but a fact. "Yes," she answered. "They won't stop looking. They won't find you tonight," he replied. "And if they do, they'll have to go through me." She studied him again, really looking this time. His words weren't a promise meant to impress. They were simple truth. In a world where men often took without asking, this one offered protection without price. After bandaging her side, he stood and stepped back. "You can have the bed," he said. "I'll sleep by the fire." "You don't have to," she began. "I know," he said. But I choose to. Exhaustion finally claimed her. As she lay down, the pain dulled into a distant ache. Her thoughts slowed. She realized she hadn't even asked his name. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. He stared into the flames for a long moment before answering. "Because once, a long time ago, someone helped me when they didn't have to. And I swore I'd never forget what that felt like." She closed her eyes, holding on to those words. Outside, the Wild West remained harsh and dangerous, full of men who chased power and fear. But inside that small cabin, something rare had taken root. Not love yet, not trust fully, but the beginning of both. In the darkest places, she realized, kindness didn't shout. It whispered, and waited to be believed. Morning arrived quietly, slipping through the small cabin window like a promise. Pale sunlight touched the wooden walls and the edge of the bed where she lay. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the dull ache in her side reminded her of the night before, and of the man who had brought her here. She pushed herself up slowly. Outside, she heard the steady sound of an axe splitting wood. Each strike was measured, controlled. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and stepped to the door. He stood a short distance away, sleeves rolled up, breath visible in the cool air. When he noticed her, he stopped immediately. "You shouldn't be standing too long," he said, setting the axe aside. "Does it still hurt?" "Yes," she admitted, "but not like before." "That's good," he replied. "Pain that eases means you're healing." He poured water from a tin kettle and handed it to her, careful not to touch her wound. They sat on the cabin steps, watching the land stretch endlessly before them. The Wild West looked peaceful in the morning light, hiding its dangers behind beauty. "You never told me your name," she said. "Elias," he answered. "And yours?" "Clara." He nodded once, as if committing it to memory. "You can stay as long as you need, Clara. No one owns you here." The words struck deeper than he realized. For years, her life had been decided by others, men with money, men with guns, men who believed fear was a tool. She had learned to survive by silence and speed. Being offered choice felt unfamiliar, almost frightening. Later, he showed her the edge of the land, where the trees thickened and tracks disappeared. "If anyone comes," he explained, "you go this way. The creek hides footprints." "You've thought this through," she said. "I don't make promises I can't keep." As the day passed, she helped where she could, sorting dried herbs, mending a torn cloth, while Elias worked nearby. He never watched her too closely, never questioned her past. That, somehow, made it easier to breathe. By evening, a distant rider appeared on the horizon. Clara froze, fear rushing back like a storm. Elias noticed instantly. "Inside," he said calmly. "Now." She obeyed. Through the window, she saw Elias step forward, standing tall, hand resting near, but not on, his weapon. The rider slowed, scanned the land, then turned away, disappearing into the dust. Elias returned only after the sound of hooves was gone. "You're safe," he said. That night, as the fire burned low, Clara spoke again. "If I leave, will you try to stop me?" "No," he answered without hesitation. "But if you stay, I'll protect you." She looked into the flames, understanding something important. Safety wasn't just walls or distance. It was the presence of someone who chose restraint over power. In the ruthless Wild West, where survival often demanded hardness, Clara found strength in something gentler. Trust built one careful moment at a time. The days that followed settled into a quiet rhythm. Morning light, simple meals, careful steps. Clara's strength returned slowly, like grass pushing through dry soil. The wound still reminded her of its presence, but each sunrise made it easier to breathe, easier to move without fear tightening her chest. Elias never rushed her. He showed her how to hold the reins without straining her side, how to walk the land and listen for sounds that didn't belong. "The plains speak," he told her one evening. "Most folks just don't hear them." One afternoon, while gathering water near the creek, Clara noticed tracks, fresh, careless, heavy. Her heart began to pound. She pointed them out when they returned. Elias crouched, studied the marks, then nodded. "Two men, passing through, not looking carefully. Will they come back?" she asked. "Maybe," he said honestly. "But fear makes men sloppy." That night, Elias reinforced the cabin door and moved supplies closer. Clara watched, surprised by how calm she felt. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was preparing. Later, by the fire, she spoke of her past for the first time. Not every detail, just enough. How she had been promised safety and found none. How running became her only skill. Elias listened without interruption, without judgment. "No one deserves that," he said quietly when she finished. "What if they catch me?" she asked. "They won't," he replied. "But if they try, they'll learn something." "What's that?" "That power doesn't always belong to the cruel." The test came at dawn. Hooves thundered toward the cabin, sharp and urgent. Clara's breath caught, but she didn't freeze. She moved exactly where Elias had shown her, staying out of sight. From the window, she saw two men dismount, their voices rough, impatient. Elias stepped outside alone. "You're trespassing," one man said. "So are you," Elias replied evenly. The tension was heavy, like the air before a storm. Clara expected shouting, violence, but it never came. Elias spoke firmly, calmly, offering nothing, threatening nothing. His confidence unsettled them more than anger ever could. They searched with their eyes, found nothing, and finally left, spitting dust and curses behind them. When Elias returned inside, Clara realized her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from relief. "You stood your ground," she said. "So did you," he answered. That night, they sat in silence, closer than before, not touching, but no longer distant. Clara understood something then. Love in the Wild West wasn't sudden or loud. It was forged through shared danger, mutual respect, and the courage to stay gentle when the world demanded hardness. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time, she wasn't running from the future. She was walking toward it, slowly, carefully, and not alone.